about Web 3, but it's worth just kind of going back and thinking about, well, what was Web 1 and Web 2? So Web 1 really was about the majority of us were just passive consumers of information. The content was static. It was really hard to update. It didn't change a lot. And really, we were reading or this consuming. We weren't writing or producing content ourselves. This is really, kind of 1990s, early 2000s timeframe. Web 2.0, which is really, kind of 2000s through to now, was this shift from us being consumers to being able to participate. The rise of YouTube, for example, Twitter, the social networks. And that's meant is that us as individuals, we're creating most of that content. Social networks and collaboration really took off. And we've seen there's been great, but also some bad consequences of this. Things such as groupthink, some of the consequences of manipulation of people's opinions by bad actors and kind of focused work. And this starts crossing over into a lot of areas and starts raising questions around who has the responsibility in these social networks of censorship, control. Who gets to decide what is good or bad in terms of impact? Very, very, very selective in how you apply that. But at the same time, this content and information became heavily centralized on those platforms. And there's really limited to no data portability. And I'll give you some examples coming up of some of the real impacts from this. And so really Web 2.0 ended up creating these siloed walled gardens of content. And that the innovation pace is locked to the speed of each individual corporation. Now, some of those corporations are incredibly fast at innovating. And I'd say, the net effect has been actually we've all benefited from this rapid rise of innovation. But now we're seeing that there's actually even faster ways of being able to innovate in the next version of the web. But the last thing on this is really the platforms themselves, they are in control. There's very little power we have as individuals. Even as large enterprises, as business users of some of these platforms, you don't have a lot of, you've seen this being played out, for example, recently in Australia around battles between who owns content in the media, for example. So what does Web 3, the decentralized web, look like? Well, first of all, it is built on top of the internet. That's not going away in any shape or form. And it really is a collection of unstoppable infrastructure, which is this decentralized evolution of the internet. Now, it's not going to take away from the cloud services that are being built today, for example. Think of it as a layer on top of that. It takes the existing compute capacity, storage, the bandwidth, the networks, and it's just a layer on top of that. Again, it's another abstraction point. There's the metaverse of these new virtual economies, decentralized finance, gaming, your online persona, the NFTs, non-fungible tokens, media content. But as you do this, the innovation increases to the speed of the entire community. And we have evidence of this. If you think of open source software, for example, it's been proven over the last 20 plus years that open source software is often right at the very front of emerging technologies, not standard proprietary commercial off-the-shelf software. We become very, very stuck on it. And what unifies this together is that Web 3.0, if you're going to be decentralized, you have to be open and you have to have interoperability first. So Web 3 is an overlay on top of existing architectures and services. Users or customers in a decentralized world, you can participate in platform governance. You can be part of deciding what is allowed or what isn't allowed. And as you take that ownership in platform governance, it starts blurring the lines of who actually owns things, which is a great aspect. And it starts to create a shift in monetization from platform, which is centralized, to the consumers and content creators. And this is one of the areas I'm most excited about, because again, I think when you democratize access to technology and find new ways to monetize it, that's what drives new innovation as we go through.